Trucker Dump, episode 160. Well, I've been holding on to this episode with the hopes that I'd be able to include a main topic, but, well, that's still in the works. So I guess there's really no logical reason to keep hanging on to all this old news. Some of it isn't all that relevant anymore, like the whole Canadian border thing and COVID news, but there's also some more relevant topics here, including all the typical stuff like recalls, more safety blitzes, not the kind where the safety tries to tackle the quarterback. Moving forward with both the infrastructure plan and futuristic trucks, drug and health updates, and of course all the things our government is up to. Also, Scott Gunter, a.k.a. Killjoy, gives me a chance to drool all over his submission for the Trucker Grub segment. And this time around, most of the listener feedback consists of new drivers wanting to join the Trucker Dump Slack group, but two long-timers pipe in on mechanical woes and YouTube videos. This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by Porter Freight Funding and Volvo Trucks.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey, trucker dumpers out there. Long time no talk. Yeah, what's new with that? Todd McCann here. I'll be your host for today and any other day as far as that goes. I am a 25 almost 25-year trucker. 24 and a half. Yeah, let's not exaggerate. Yeah, let's go ahead and exaggerate. I'm a trucker. That's what we do, right? Anyway, I've been doing this podcast since 2012, so quite a long time here. And I have written two trucking ebooks. One is called Trucking Life, and one is called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job. You can find both of those at my website at abouttruckdriving.com. There's a 25% discount if you want to get both of those at the same time. Or you can order those anywhere you want individually at Amazon or Apple iBooks, wherever you get your books. So enough about that. This episode has been a long time in the making. Like I said in the intro, I just couldn't hang on to it anymore. I've got more news piling up than I can handle for the future. So we're going to have another episode. Hopefully soon. We'll see how that works out. But anyway, big announcement towards the end of this podcast, so make sure that you stick around for that. Lots of stuff has happened between now and the last time we've had an episode, and we'll cover some of that in the news, and some of that's just personal stuff that's going on. But anyway, we'll get you caught up with all that eventually. Right now, let's just try to whip this dang podcast out. What do you say? Okay. Let's get started with, of course, the news. You know, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a rebel. Yeah, a real outlaw. And to prove it, well, I'm not going to do truck recalls first in the news today. Oh, man, what a bad boy I am. No, first let's hit up something that is relevant right now. How about tax? Yep. Taxes. Well, it's tax time again. We all know it. And this article I found over here on thetruckersreport.com talks about 3 IRS tax code changes that truck drivers need to know. Basically, you're going to want to go over and check this one out if any of these apply to you because, well, it's kind of long and drawn. Well, it's a short article, but there's a lot of numbers and stuff like that, and there's no sense in going over that, right? Well, the first is about new tax brackets. As I'm sure you know, the more money you make, the higher the tax percentage that you pay. And those percentages have changed. It's still 12, 22, 24, 32, and the top one of 35. But what has changed is the threshold where that kicks in. And, well, it hasn't changed a lot, but it's changed a little bit. So just be aware of that. The second thing you might want to be aware of is that truck drivers are now able to deduct some more healthcare stuff. So you might want to check that out. There's some details here in this article. Another thing you may want to be aware of is truck drivers, especially if you work for yourself, may be able to lower their taxes with their healthcare plans. And there are a lot of specifics on this one, who qualifies and who doesn't. So you want to be sure and check out the link here in the show notes for that one. I'll explain show notes here in a second. And the third one is make sure you get all of the deductions that you have coming. Now, a lot of company drivers don't get as many deductions as they used to have. But as I've said in the past, nowadays, the standard deduction that we get from the IRS, for me, at least in my situation, is actually better than when I used to itemize deductions and claim, $66 per day every day I was out on the road, that kind of thing. So anyway, just going to want to check with your tax professional on this if you got any questions. But some common truck driver deductions that you may be missing here are like union dues, trucking association fees, tools of the trade and equipment that you use, trucking business insurance, licensing costs, industry related subscriptions like to magazines and stuff like that, or, load boards, things like that, cell phone plans, class 8 costs and depreciation, travel related necessities for travel, and internet and device expenses. So I guess that probably means maybe computers and laptops and, your phone, if you use your phone quite a bit, which lots of businesses run on just a phone nowadays. So anyway, like I said, check out this link in the show notes. Again, show notes are found in your podcast app. You are using a podcast app, aren't you? Well, you should be if you aren't. But yeah, scroll up, scroll down, scroll right, scroll left, wherever. They're in there somewhere. And what that is a link to every single article and most of the topics that I'm going to talk about in today's show. And you can also go to abouttruckdriving.com and look for Trucker Dump 160. That's 160. And you'll find all the show notes right there. And all the past show notes. If you remember something from a past episode and you're like, what was the link he was talking about? Well, it'll be in there. Just keep scrolling back till you'll find it, I guess, if you don't remember the episode number. All right. Anyway, enough about taxes. Let's hope everybody gets them in on time. I believe the deadline this year is April 19th, if memory serves. I think they moved it back just a little bit. Not sure why that is. But hey, the IRS is the IRS. They're going to do what they want to do. Ain't much we can do about it. Now, I know you're really eager to get to the recalls, but got one more story here before we go on to recalls. Found this one on overdriveonline.com. Well, guess what's coming around the corner again? Yep, the CVSA announces the road check inspection blitz dates. That's 72 hours of fun. Everybody loves that, right? CVSA stands for Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance. Every year they have this international road check. It lasts 72 hours. This year it's going to be May 17th through 19th. It is happening in Canada, Mexico, and U.S., which is the international part of that, of course. And there are going to be inspection trucks, buses, drivers, at inspection stations, weigh stations, and even pop-up, roadside temporary inspection sites, stuff like that. And this year they are going to focus on wheel ends. Now, I went, wheel ends? What the heck's a wheel end? Me and my technical mechanical skills and all. I figured a wheel end. I thought I probably knew what it was just from the sound of it, but I end up being right, actually. But there is a document on exactly what it covers. I'll put a link in the show notes to that one. Also, there's a whole bunch of stuff here, but basically this is a PDF that comes from the CVSA themselves, and it flat out says exactly what they're going to be looking for. But we're looking at tires, cracked rims, hubs, leaking wheel seals, stuff like that. Anything related to the end of the tire wheel area, anywhere around there. So just be prepared for that. Now, the article here does say that if your truck passes a North American Standard Level 1 or Level 5 inspection without any items being wrong or anything like that, you're going to get a CVSA decal to stick on your truck. And what that basically does is it tells other inspectors that, hey, this truck has been inspected and that decal is good for 3 months. So if you get inspected, make sure they give you that CVSA sticker so people will just quit bugging you and let you do your job. So again, that date is May 17th through the 19th. Be prepared. You got plenty of warning. And, now we're going to get on to the recalls, which of course you want to get fixed before this roadside inspection, right? All right. Okay, the first recall we have is from Kenworth and Peterbilt. Yep, PACCAR's in trouble. Well, not too much trouble, actually. Just 1,100 trucks. These range from 2016 to 2022 of different models. Check out the link in the show notes here to learn which models are affected. And of course, there's a recall number and phone numbers and all that stuff in the article also. So basically what they're saying is there is a methane detection system on the truck, but it won't function if the system loses power. And apparently that's been a problem. And if the system doesn't detect high methane levels, it could increase the risk of an injury or fire. So, of course, very important. Don't want to burn up in your truck, right? We've all seen that on the side of the road, and that's not pretty at all. The second one we've got also involves Peterbilt. That's about 3,500 tractors. These are all 2022 models, Peterbilt 579s, and only those equipped with chassis fairings. Basically, there is a loose bolt on them that might make the cab step just fall right off. And you don't want that, especially when you're jumping in and out of the truck all the time. So, again, recall numbers, all that stuff in the article here. Found this one on overdriveonline.com. And lastly, let's jump over to thetruckersreport.com, where we find out that Daimler's got some issues with some Western Stars and Freightliner. Let's see, we got about 2,800 vehicles, and what's going on there is the fuel tubes between the fuel rail and the injectors for cylinders 4, 5, and 6 are prone to fatigue and cracking. And if you're one of those morons who smokes while you're fueling your truck, that could cause a fire. Of course, let's not do that, folks. That's just dumb. All right. Again, all the details for this one. And there's actually, this article actually goes on a little bit more and talks about some of the other recalls that Daimler's had in the past year. It's been a busy year for them when it comes to recalls. If you're interested in that, check it out in link in the show notes. And of course, these may or may not affect you. Honestly, the reason I even go over these recalls is because, if you're an owner operator or a lease guy, or gal, sorry. Typically you're going to get notified by the, Daimler or PACCAR or whoever's doing the recall. They're going to notify you and let you know that truck needs to get into the shop and get fixed. But we have a lot of company drivers that listen to this show too. So you're out there just driving along in a truck. You're not really paying attention. Of course, the company's going to get noticed, but if they don't do anything right away, hey, how are you even supposed to know unless you're listening to the Trucker Dump podcast and sit through this boring section, right? So that's basically why I'm telling you about these, all these recalls. Even if it may not affect you, just skip right through it if it doesn't. Onward. Hey, sticking with the equipment subject here, found this article on freightwaves.com. Eaton Cummins Transmission Joint Venture hunts for last stick shift holdouts. Yeah. Sorry, you drivers who really love your stick shifts, but they're saying that, this is a way of the past. It's going away. I'm sorry. It's just going away. For instance, this article talks about how Volvo introduced its iShift back in 2001, and even 6 years later in 2007, drivers are only buying them in like the low single digit percentages, 1, 2, 3%, hardly anybody buying these automated manual transmissions. But as of last year, the iShift accounted for about 95% of their sales. So, this is the way things are going. Apparently, according to this article, they are much easier to maintain. They get better fuel mileage. Lots of different factors here. And, they're even opening them up to more, they got the 12 speeds right now. They got, different varying speeds, Back when I first drove an automated manual, it was a 10-speed, and now they're up to 12 speeds. And Eaton Cummins just announced that they have got an 18-speed transmission out there now. It just came out recently. Wow. And I thought, who's going to use an 18-speed automated manual transmission? Who's going to want that? But then I remembered our conversation with heavy hauling guy Travis Jellison here on the show. I don't remember what episode that was, but I'll go and put a link in the show notes when I find that. And, he talked about how, he's still driving a stick shift, but he has this old time mentor that he talks to a lot who went to an 18-speed automatic, and he loves it. And this is an old timer who's not supposed to like this kind of thing, but he loves it, says he won't ever go back to a stick shift again. I'm driving an automatic again. I really like them. I don't have a problem with them. They do take off a little bit slow off the line, but let's be honest, we shouldn't be rocketing. When we see a green light, we shouldn't be romping on the throttle and taking off, like a dragster anyway, right? Freight's going to go all over the place. You don't want that. So nice and smooth is the way you play this game. So anyway, I was thinking this was a new thing, but apparently it's not. This collaboration between Eaton and Cummins happened back in 2017, but they put out this article just to warn people that if you want a stick shift, you better get on it, because just like, in the car world, it's really hard to find a stick shift in a car or a pickup truck nowadays. It's easier in a pickup, but in a car, man, it's almost impossible to find a car that has a stick shift in it. Well, that's the way we're going. So, hey, you long timers who, say anybody that drives an automated transmission is a steering wheel holder. Well, I'm a steering wheel holder, and I rather enjoy it. You better get used to it, because one of these days you may be looking in the mirror and calling yourself a steering wheel holder. So, putting it simply, get over yourself. All right, let's move on, but let's stick with Cummins, because boy, have they been busy lately. First, Cummins has announced that it has plans to acquire Jacobs Vehicle Systems. This is the company that operates, of course, the Jake Brake, which is an engine brake found on many trucks nowadays. I guess this Jake Brake, I didn't know this. This article is kind of interesting for stuff like this. It's a very short article, but I rather enjoyed it. Learned something new. Apparently, the Jake Brake was invented back in 1961 by, guess who? Cummins founder, Clessie Cummins. So I guess Cummins actually had this and then split it off for a while, and then now they're buying it back. So no big deal there. Just, you win a bar bet with this. It's probably not going to affect your life whatsoever. So anyway, Mr. Clessie Cummins, founder of Cummins, we all drivers thank you who have to go down all of these big hills all the time. Without a Jake Brake, it's just no fun. Ask my new trainee who went down Monteagle the other day without a Jake Brake. We made it down alive, so that's a good thing, right? Like I said, Cummins has been really busy lately. Over here on FreightWaves.com, there is an article. Cummins will buy Meritor for $3.7 billion. Yeah, that's billion. Apparently, this deal is even bigger than when Volkswagen bought Navistar a while back. They paid $3.3 billion for that. That's crazy. But you know what? This seems to be a pretty smart move for Cummins, because think about this. It says here in the article that, Cummins is an engine builder, right? Well, we're going to more electric vehicles in the future. That's what they're looking at. And right now, everything kind of connects to the engine, and that's the most important component, really. But in the future, there is no engine. They say it basically all hooks up. The new engine block is the new e-axles, these electric axles. And who specializes in axles and brake parts and things like that? Meritor. So it makes perfect sense. They are going to fold Meritor into the company. They hope to save a lot of money, on management and stuff like that, because they think there's a lot of overlap there. So anyway, they are really, they're setting themselves up for the future, really, because they're kind of a one size fits all now. They're going to be able to do the whole powertrain, basically. Just, these axles look complicated, but I guess we'll see. It's just going to be weird not having a big old engine under that hood, right? I mean, do we even need a hood at that point? Very interesting. Probably just for, aerodynamics sake. But anyway, if you're more interested in this merger than what I just told you, go over here and check out the link in the show notes. That can be found again at freightwaves.com. And according to this next article that I found on thetruckersreport.com, it sounds like Cummins is making a smart move, advancing towards the electric thing here, because this article is called Diesel Fuel Expected to Rise as Wall Street Predicts $100 per barrel crude prices. Well, boy, and this article here was even written before all of this going on over in Ukraine with the Russian attack over there. So, oh boy, it's not a good time for our current administration to have cut back on our domestic oil production, is it? But here we find ourselves. And, anyway, this goes into, I'm not really going to go into this article a lot, just letting you know that expect prices of all kinds of fuel to be going up quite a bit. And, well, ain't much we can do about it, unless we relax some of our own stuff. Boy, it would be nice to be, energy, self-reliant, or what's the term? Energy dependent? Independent. Yeah. Energy independent, by producing our own oil and all that stuff, which we have plenty of, but for some reason we can't do anything with it because heaven forbid the environment. Okay. I'll stop right there before I say anything else. But back over to freightwaves.com. Yep, CARB is the California Air Resources Board, the thorn in every truck manufacturer's side because they have all of these strict emissions standards, and then all of these other states pick up on it. For instance, who was it? Washington, Oregon. We talked about this in the last episode, I believe. Other Oregon, Washington, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, they've already approved a lot of this stuff, and they're just going along with, California, and even, like GM, Ford, BMW, they've all kind of signed on to this stuff too. So, I guess somebody's got to be the first, but boy, they just jump right out there and just make unreasonable claims. And then we get into all kinds of problems with, these EGR valves and the DEF, and all of the clogged diesel particulate filters and all this crap that they just keep shoving forward more and more. But anyway, this article says 2020 may be pivotal year for California's green rules for trucks. So basically, they're saying there's two rules here. There's a proposed rule called Clean Fleets Rule, and another one that's already existing is called the Advanced Clean Truck Regulation. Basically, these two rules work together. The act, that's the Advanced Clean Truck Act that's already in place, that one requires trucks in California to sell a certain portion of zero emissions vehicles among their total sales. The other one, the Clean Fleets Rule, that is probably going to be, it's going to be voted on this year in California. And if it passes, it's going to require a certain portion of zero emissions vehicles to be bought by buyers to replace existing vehicles in their fleets. So one's aimed at the manufacturers, one is aimed at the buyers. And to show you how aggressive they're being on this, they're saying that under the act, that's the one that's currently in effect, that, manufacturers have to produce. They're saying with class 4 to 8 trucks, that's a range from 14,000 to 33,000 pounds, that requirement is at 9% by the year 2024 are going to have to be sold as zero emissions vehicle. But by the year 2035, 75% of the vehicles sold in California are going to have to be electric vehicles. Crazy. Or zero emissions vehicles, I guess. It's only slightly better for class 7 and 8, the most of what we drive. That's a 5% requirement by 2024, rising to 40% by 2032. That still seems a bit crazy, but hey, leave it up to California to make crazy rules that nobody can follow. Now, here's the crazier part, as if the first part wasn't crazy enough. This new clean fleets rule that's going to be proposed this year and possibly adopted by the end of this year. Of course, that's not a certainty, but this is California, so I would expect. Anyway, it may be hitting the drayage sector the worst. And of course, drayage is like the trucks that haul stuff in and out of ports and locally and things like that. A lot of containers, things like that. But anyway, man, this is crazy. Again, this is CARB going on here, but they're saying any new truck bought and registered after November 2023 is going to have to be a zero emissions vehicle. That just seems crazy to me, especially since, as this article points out, we don't have the infrastructure for all the charging yet. That is nowhere close to being ready. And 2023, good grief, that's next year. Man, I don't know how they're planning on pulling this off. But for now, if you have an existing internal combustion engine in your vehicle, they must be retired from your fleet under two guidelines. First, they can operate for up to 13 years from their vehicle year. So basically what they're saying is if you buy a new truck with a diesel engine in it that's a 2023 year model, like at the end of 2022 or early 2023, you'd be allowed to operate that for 13 years, which is 2035. That's where they're getting that 2035. Everything's going to be is changing. Wow. Or they say there's another option, the earlier of 18 years or 800,000 miles from the original engine. But even with these rules, all drayage trucks must be zero emissions vehicles by 2035, even if the 18 years or the 800,000 mile mark hasn't been reached. Just freaking crazy. Wow. I've said it a million times and I'll say it one more. California, show me how you're going to do this when you already can't, let everybody use electricity at the same time in your state during the summer months. Okay? Figure that one out, then let us know how it goes. Dear Lord. If you're interested in this, check out the link. I found this one at freightwaves.com. As I said in the last episode, every time I think about electric vehicles, I always think about fully autonomous vehicles. I don't know why, probably just because both of them are coming in the near future. But anyway, just a really brief article here I found over on overdriveonline.com. This one just talks about JB Hunt is entering a long-term partnership with Waymo Via. Now, Waymo Via is owned by Google parent company Alphabet. So they got lots of funding going on here. And basically what JB Hunt is trying to do is make all of Texas completely autonomous within the next few years. That's what they say. Now, they've been running trials for all last year on I-45 in Texas. So if you want to save your life a little bit and be a little less dangerous, just stay off I-45 in Texas. But anyway, these have been going on for quite a while, I guess, and it's been pretty successful, but they're planning on adding more. Mostly they're on I-45 to see, we just need more and more and more testing. And JB Hunt's got a lot of trucks and they got a lot of freight. So of course that's probably, depending on how you look at it, it's a good merge or a good partnership, I should say. It's not a merging, but a partnership. It'd be a good partnership if you're interested and you want these autonomous vehicles. If you don't, it's probably a really crappy, collaboration if you don't want that kind of stuff. Anyway, really short article. Again, overdriveonline.com. It's coming. Watch out. Hey, do you remember, I think it was in the last episode, we were talking about these yard trucks, these automated yard trucks called Outriders. Outrider Systems, I believe is the name of the company. But anyway, it is basically a yard that was set up in somewhere in Texas, I believe, it was Colorado, Texas. I can't remember. Either way, it was just a autonomous yard that was controlled completely by autonomous trucks. You know, they did all the, they were spotting trailers in spots, and I thought they were backing into docks, but apparently they weren't. According to this article, that has just started taking place. Wow, it's some distribution yard that they're working in. They've got one whole yard just set up just for this kind of running, you know, for backing into docks and stuff like that to perfect it. And they say that the, you know, the articulated backing, you know, where it's a combo vehicle, backing is probably the most hard maneuver to do in trucking. And guess what? Well, they're doing it. They're doing it with 28 footers, 48 footers, and 53 footers. They've done it on dry, van, and reefer. And that's completely without any human interaction or, you know, teleoperations like remote control or anything like that. It's just the truck doing its thing. They're now able to, you know, back into a trailer, hook up the airlines automatically, which I still want to see how that works in person. I wish they'd put a video out of that. That would be really neat to see. But then they can pull it out of the spot. They can back it into the dock. When it's done, they can pull it out, put it back in another spot. Of course, I don't know I guess they're going to have somebody out there to close the doors, unless they got some really, really, really long arms on that, on that yard truck that can go all the way back to a 53 footer. Don't think that's happening. But anyway, they say, that this, Outrider is based in Colorado, so it probably was Colorado. Anyway, they claim they have 11 large enterprise customers, and they did announce that Georgia Pacific is now one of them. So, boy, Georgia Pacific, big paper company. So if they're using it, and God knows who else, how long before we start seeing this job, you know, at lots of warehouses, you know, maybe there won't be quite as many yard jockey jobs available. So less guys or gals being at home every day, you know, because that is one perk of that job is you're home every day. You never hit the road. You're basically just backing trailers and spotting and moving trailers all day within the yard, or maybe back and forth between, you know, multiple warehouses in a close vicinity or something like that. Anyway, it's a job that probably doesn't pay as much as over the road or LTL or anything like that. But hey, you know, it is a job that gets you home every day, and it is trucking, right? And it's a job that needs to be done. But according to Outrider here, do they? Does it need to be done by a human? Apparently not. Wonder how much one of these suckers costs, you know, because a lot of these terminals, a lot of these warehouses, you know, have 3 or 4 trucks, you know, 3 or 4 yard trucks, you know. Might be a pretty costly endeavor, but would it be cheaper than paying 3 or 4 drivers? Who knows? One-time cost compared to ongoing labor costs. Interesting. I'm going to keep an eye on this one. I'm very interested to see where this one goes. All right. Boy, I don't even know where to start with this next one. There's so much I've missed in this past month or month and a half, however long it's been. Yowza. And of course, we're talking about all the shenanigans going on up there at the Canadian U.S. border, particularly the border crossings and the Ambassador Bridge with the Freedom Convoy. Of course, I don't have to tell you this, I don't think, but I'm going to have to say it anyway to describe what's going on. Basically, a bunch of truckers and a bunch of Canadians also lined up, blocked major border crossings and with protests about the COVID-19 restrictions. Now, these restrictions that they're talking about were specifically for Canadian truckers who were trying to re-enter Canada. That's what was being protested, really. They were saying if you are not vaccinated or only partially vaccinated, you have to quarantine for 14 days when you were coming back in. And of course, that is not feasible for a trucker who is going back and forth across the border. And often, you know, these guys or gals are doing this multiple times per day, you know, to transport stuff across the border. I know my company has, we have our Detroit terminal up there, and they have drivers in and out of there all day long who their whole job is to just go across the border. And these are Canadian truckers who do this. And I don't even know how they're still operating under these conditions, but well, apparently they weren't for about 9 days, possibly longer than that. I do know that Prime Minister Trudeau up there, he enabled the Emergencies Act up there, which I guess hasn't been enacted since the 40s. And this was to, quell the problem up there. The problem was, they were blocking traffic and all that stuff. Now, all right, like I said, don't really know where to start. There's so much to this. But if you remember back when Black Lives Matter protests were going on, I did say back then that I did not approve of any protest, no matter how legitimate it was, if it was infringing on others people's rights and, for instance, how they were blocking roads and they would be out in the highway. And then that, trucker, that fuel hauling trucker got stuck in there and there was a major incident. They were attacking his truck and all that stuff going on. Well, this wasn't happening up there, but it's the same situation where they were blocking traffic. So while I agree with their right to protest and, bring awareness to this situation, I'm not sure this is the path to go on. Now, having said that, there is a U.S., there was actually 3 U.S. convoys that were planned also. I guess a couple of them have already been canceled because there just wasn't much turnout. Surprise, surprise. But the third one, which is called the People's Convoy, started in L.A. area and it's going to go to Washington, D.C. Now, they've already said this is going to be a peaceful protest. They are not going to shut down any highways. They're not going to drive into downtown D.C., which, if anybody knows, you can't actually do. But I guess some people have gotten special permission to do that in the past for these kind of reasons. But, the government our U.S. government is already setting up for this. They're putting up blockades and they're expecting trouble. I hope the truckers don't give that to them. Don't give them that opportunity. Don't stoop to their level. We're just trying to raise awareness for the situation here. Now, some may be thinking that, well, the vaccine mandate didn't go into effect here. So what are we worried about? Well, all the Supreme Court really ruled about was that the federal government couldn't force this on people. It didn't say that the smaller courts couldn't or the businesses couldn't. Individual businesses can still say that you have to be vaccinated to work there. And now, of course, these are being fought out in smaller courts, and that's all the Supreme Court said. So this problem has not gone away. It's just been passed off onto the smaller courts to decide for themselves, because states' rights still do exist, right? So anyway, like I said, the 2 in the U.S. have petered out fairly quick, but the third one is actually going pretty strong. Apparently, last I heard, like that when they were going through Oklahoma, there was about 2,000 cars and trucks strong. So it's not just trucks, it's also cars, and they're making their way across the country slowly. I don't think it's blocking a lot of traffic except for in highly congested areas already. And my guess, I don't know this for a fact, but my guess would be that they're trying to avoid, like going through Oklahoma City during rush hour traffic, that kind of a thing. Hey, a little late breaking update here for those of you who do not subscribe to the Trucker Dump Facebook page or the Trucker Dump Slack group. There'll be links to both of those in the show notes. But hey, my friend Jack and I were actually in this, in this People's Convoy for just briefly. We just happened to be going through Oklahoma just the time they were pulling out from the truck stop there in Cuba at exit 208. And we ran with them for quite a while, and true to their word, they all stayed in the right lane. We barely got slowed up. We stayed up in the, we had to both be in the left lane because we were pushing for time and had to keep booking it. But it was really cool. I just kind of held my phone up, with my video camera on, and got about a 7-minute video of just everything that was going on. So if you're interested in that, I will put a link in the show notes and, check that out if you if you want to see what was going on with that People's Convoy. It was a very cool experience. I'm glad I just had just a very little bitty tiny part in it. It felt really good. Got to honk the horns at all the people standing on the sides of the road and on the bridges and see all the American flags and everything. And it was pretty freaking cool. Anyway, check that out if you're interested. Link in the show notes. Okay, now let's pick up where we left off. But there's been lots of support for this. People standing on bridges, honking their horns, waving American flags, all this stuff. And basically these convoys are just trying to say, hey, we're stuck with this COVID. It's not going away, but that doesn't mean we have to shut down our entire country to deal with it. Let's release it, see what happens. It's not, especially this Delta variant, is not, or not the Delta, but the Omicron is not doesn't seem to be quite as deadly as the other ones were. So, let's just say that. Anyway, best of luck to this convoy, the People's Convoy going on. I hope they, have success bringing awareness to all this stuff, and I hope they stay out of trouble. Don't block any lanes. I don't think that's cool at all. Like I said, I'm not real happy with what happened up there at the Ambassador Bridge, but I do feel for them. I understand why they did it. I just think that's kind of the wrong way to go about it. I mean, talk about forcing the government's hand. They went and they did this emergency act, and boy, that emergency act opens up a lot of stuff. They were able to just go in there and drag truckers out of their trucks, bring in tow trucks to haul them off. They were able to seize bank accounts of not only the truckers involved and the companies, the carriers involved, but also people who were donating lots of money towards it, that kind of thing. And boy, that is just talk about government overreach. Of course, this wouldn't have happened if they wouldn't have shut down the bridge, but still, this, again, I try not to get too political on this podcast, but this is what happens when you give government too much power. They will abuse it. And how cool is that they're able to go in and shut down people's bank accounts? These are truckers who are just trying to earn a living. And now, man, I don't know. It's a bad situation all the way around. I am going to put links to a few different articles in here. Yeah, there's some from overdriveonline.com. There's some from FreightWaves. These are all about, they were facing prison fines. They were going to lose their CDLs for a certain amount of time. That did happen. As a matter of fact, I don't know how many of them got it back. I think the main organizer up there actually was told to leave Ottawa. If he left Ottawa, he could have his license back in a few days or something like that, 7 days. Anyway, crazy. Probably all kinds of fines. There were arrests going on. It's just crazy that it had to get to this point. I mean, government, it works for the people, right? I mean, it does here in the States. It's supposed to, but it doesn't seem to be happening. There are representatives. We call them representatives for a reason, right? They're supposed to be representative of what we're thinking. Yes. Anyway, here's one funny thing that I found during my research. Not funny, really kind of sad. This is a letter. I'll put a link in the show notes of this because you might want to read this. Man, what a bunch of hypocrites. This came from the Congress of the United States, the House of Representatives. They wrote this letter to President Biden and Prime Minister Trudeau about, all of the concerns with this blockade up there and that, the things weren't going to be able to transfer back and forth between countries and all the concerns they had with that. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. I get that. But they also expressed their concerns about Mr. Trudeau's use of the Emergency Act. And they're saying this should only be used, when it is life-threatening and urgent in critical situations and stuff like that. And it's like, wait, is this the same government that was trying to force everyone into a mandate down here? Was it urgent and critical? Yes, some people are dying from COVID. I get that. But is it urgent and critical? Is it that bad? Yeah, I don't know. Bunch of freaking hypocrites. What a surprise. Anyway, I think I'm done with that political stuff. I'm just going to move on. However, I will say one more thing, and I'm not quite up to date on this. I can't find any recent information, but the U.S. was going to actually close their borders to unvaccinated Canadians and Mexicans. And this was back in January, I think 26th is when that was going to go into effect. So holy crud. I mean, it's like, let's see, when was that? No, it's going to be January 22nd. Now, I haven't heard anything beyond that, if that's still in effect, but, wow. Okay. I had also heard that Trudeau and Biden were meeting to discuss this kind of stuff. I don't know if the Mexican president is going to be involved in these conversations or not. Just crazy, crazy, crazy. I'm just glad I'm not crossing the border right now. If you are a driver that listens to this show that crosses the border, whether the Mexican border or the Canadian border, often, please tell us how this affected you, because I did hear some stories about, there were lots of truckers in Canada that were trying to move back and forth that were fully vaccinated, and they wouldn't have had any problem going back and forth, but they were affected by this blockade too, because they couldn't do their job. So, I didn't hear of any like incidents where there were trucker on trucker fights or anything like, or arguments or anything like that. I think they were basically in support of it because, let's face it, most people, even if you've got vaccinated, they probably still don't think that the government has the right to force you into taking it, right? That's kind of the way most people I've talked to feel. Hey, if you want to get the vaccine, fine. If you want to get the booster, fine, but don't force it on everybody else. So anyway, the only more recent news I have on this is an article from overdriveonline.com, and a bunch of U.S. governors and Canadian provincial leaders want this truckers' border vaccination thing to be exempt for truckers. Now, I thought I had reported on this a long time ago that they had called for a vaccine mandate for all transportation employees in Canada, but they had exempted truckers. That's the last I had heard, that apparently that's not the case anymore. I don't know, because apparently there are some, unvaccinated Canadian truckers that were trying to get back across the border, and that was the whole stink of it going on up there. But anyway, like I said, 16 U.S. governors and 2 Canadian premiers have called for this to just, hey, we could fix this by exempting these truckers who are supposed to be considered essential workers. I mean, that's what we call them, right? So why are they not exempt from these things? Very interesting. I mean, there's all kind of exemptions for hours of service. Apparently, with the COVID going on, hours of service don't matter. You can drive as long as you want, because, that's not dangerous apparently. But, crossing a border when you are not fully vaccinated is very interesting. Anyway, I grow weary of this subject completely. But speaking of Canada, let's at least give them a little bit of good news. We've talked in the past about how Canada has had a lot of trouble. Well, not a lot of trouble, but I guess, they don't have a whole lot of ELDs that are fully supported up there and certified, because unlike here in the States, here in the States, they put the responsibility off on the manufacturer of the ELD, the electronic logging device. They're the ones that have to meet the standards, and if they're found out later that they don't meet the standards, then they're in trouble. Whereas Canada takes a more, it's a more government-controlled country up there, right? So they're more on top of this, and they're just like, no, you have to submit it to us. We have to fully test it, and then when we approve it, you're okay. Well, that was causing all kinds of delays, and there were very few ELDs available up there in the state, or up there in Canada. But now another big one has come on board, and that is Keep Truckin'. Now, Keep Truckin', last I had heard, they were owned by Alphabet, which was owned by, which is the parent company of Google. So it is a very popular ELD, and apparently they do meet the standards now. So if you're still looking for an ELD and you've been naughty and haven't been running one, or you don't like the one you currently have, Keep Truckin' might be something to check out. Hey, you want to know a little secret about running your own business? Well, the suckiest part is tracking down customers that owe you money. Well, as an owner-operator, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Well, take away this headache by calling Porter Freight Funding at 205-397-0934 or going to porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump. All one word, truckerdump. So what exactly does Porter Freight Funding do? Well, one of the things they do is get you paid almost immediately. I mean, once you've delivered a load, you call, tell them how much it was worth. They pay you within 24 hours, and then they'll go after the customer to get the money. Frustration avoided. Not to mention, when you own your own business, you need cash flow for whatever, putting fuel in your tanks or fixing a blown tire, whatever it may be. You need cash on hand. You don't need to be waiting around for somebody to pay you. Even better, there's no minimums with Porter Freight Funding. You can use them just for your problem children, or you can set up an ongoing account with them and just let them pay you every single time and let them do all of the bill collecting. Whichever option you choose, Porter Freight Funding is the way you want to go. So head on over to porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump to learn more, or just give them a call at 205-397-0934. And be sure to ask them about all their other services like brokering, dispatching, fuel cards, insurance, and they can even help you with compliance. How cool is that? So thanks to Porter Freight Funding for offering an awesome service and for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. Let's move on to another really popular topic among truck drivers: drug testing. Yeah. There is a new study out, according to freightwaves.com, that says truckers are using cocaine more than marijuana. That's what this study says. This is saying that the U.S. Department of Transportation may be under-reporting cocaine abuse by truck drivers. And this is all designed to put more pressure on federal regulators to allow hair testing as an alternative to urine testing for pre-employment drug screening, basically, just pre-employment. Now, they're saying because this drug and alcohol clearinghouse does not allow hair testing that it's under-reporting, because those results have always said that marijuana is the most used drug by far for truck drivers. The cocaine and opioids were way back in the background there. But according to this study, which was done by a bunch of truckload carriers, companies like J.B. Hunt, Knight Swift Transportation, U.S. Express, Schneider, they're all part of this Alliance for Driver Safety and Security, also known as the Trucking Alliance. They paid for this study, and they all do this hair testing, and they all submitted their results, which showed that, according to them, comparing hair tests to just a urine test, there was 16.2% more cocaine users and 14.34% more opioid users than were found in the clearinghouse's urine tests. So they're trying to say that, hey, if you use the hair test, you're going to see that way more truckers are on drugs, and probably about 60,000 of them should be kicked out that weren't reported. Okay, well, that's great. That's a great thing to do, this, when the supply chain is in the position it is. But again, this one's on freightwaves.com. But there's another article over on overdriveonline.com where OIDA, that's the Owner-Operator Independent Driver Association, they say that the report on drivers' drug use is meaningless. Okay. They're just basically saying this is all propaganda just to get the hair testing in, which OIDA has been against from the very beginning. Now, their argument on this is that it is important to understand that hair testing can't really focus on current use. It's focusing on what's happened in the past weeks or months, not what is happening right now, which they say is why you can't use a hair test for an after accident testing. You have to use urine because it is current. It will say what right now that driver is on. You know, it doesn't matter if that guy smoked weed, 6 months ago on a vacation or did some coke as far as that goes, what matters is right here and now. And, one could even argue for the hair testing, for pre-employment. Okay. Maybe the guy's been unemployed for the past 6 months or something. Maybe, I don't know why a trucker would be, but, maybe they're just getting into the industry. Who knows? And, they've been out partying a little bit and enjoying their time off, maybe they've been on some kind of a medical leave and they've been smoking some reefer to help them feel better. Who knows? Whatever the fact is, just because you did cocaine and smoked weed in the past does not mean you're doing it now. And, not everybody is an addict. Some people just use it for recreational use. I know it sounds like I'm promoting the use of drugs. I'm not. I'm just saying that, you don't want to be drunk at work. I get that. You don't want to be high at work. I get that. But, nobody's keeping me from drinking a beer on my off time, right? Nobody's keeping me from drinking a whole case if I wanted to, although I would puke my guts out because I'm not used to that since my 20s. I would never be able to do that nowadays. But anyway, this is just interesting. I thought, that they're saying that they're underreporting it, but, OWIDE is saying, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. We got this. Now, while we're on the topic of drug testing, let's go on over to cdllife.com. This talks about the DOT eyes a plan to allow oral fluid drug testing to help combat employee cheating. Yeah, apparently they're kind of worried about that, where you go into just the fact that the urine test cannot be monitored. I mean, they're talking about employee privacy and stuff like that. Like they can't just stand there and watch you whip it out and do it right there in the thing. So, you get a little bit of privacy behind closed door or whatever, and they tell you to empty your pockets, but how do they know you really did? How do they know you don't have a tube of somebody else's urine in your pocket that they decided to do it to keep you out of trouble, right? Some friend or something whizzed in a test tube for you or something, you stuck it down your pants. They're not checking down your pants before, you walk in the bathroom. So they're just saying this use of oral fluid testing could cut down on the cheating. Basically because, to get an oral test, they would be like swabbing the inside of your mouth, and that would be doing that right out in public. There's no way to cheat on that. So anyway, they're looking into this. They're saying that the oral fluid test actually costs about $10 to $20 less than a urine test also. And they're also saying it could be a significant savings of time and resources by eliminating the shy bladder problem. Which, hey, we've all had that, right? You show up, the whole idea of a random drug test is you show up not knowing that it's coming. So, what do you do when you get to your terminal or one of your yards or something? First thing you do often after a long drive is run in, take a leak. And then you go check in with your boss and they say, hey, we need you to go take a drug test. And you're like, Dad, gummit. I just went to the bathroom. Why didn't you warn me ahead of time? Well, they can't warn you ahead of time. It's a random drug test, for Pete's sake. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. They're running by the U.S. Department of Health and Services, and they're just going to see if they can, use this as an alternative. If it's cheaper, if it's cheaper than urine, I imagine urine is even cheaper than hair follicles. So I guess we'll see where this goes. Again, that one's on cdllife.com. We don't hit them very often, but I'm glad I found that article there. I think I found this one on Facebook, scroll by. I know personally, I would rather have my mouth swabbed any day than have to, produce some urine and then you bring out your nice golden cup to, some poor employee that's got to, pour it off in the cup or whatever. I understand if they're a nurse, but I imagine when somebody signed up for, to work at a safety department at a trucking company, they were not expecting to be handling a bunch of truckers' piss. That'd be my guess. I know I wouldn't be expecting that. So anyway, that is enough about drug testing, but we do have some more things regarding health. We got one more article here on overdriveonline.com. FMCSA updates the vision standard for certain truck drivers. And they've been doing this a lot recently with things like diabetes and, vision and hearing. They've been used to, a driver would have to jump through hoops and go through all kinds of tests to get these exemptions. And it was a long process also. Now they're, basically saying, hey, prove to us you can drive a truck and we'll give you the license. We'll give you that exemption. And this, is for vision for drivers with one eye. If you can prove you can drive with, one eye or, some kind of corrective lens or whatever, you're going to get that license. And of course, they're doing that basically, because we have a open air quote here, shortage of truck drivers. We don't know that that's the problem, but we do know everybody's always looking for truck drivers. That's for sure. So this could alleviate some of that problem. So anyway, interested in that one, overdriveonline.com. Hey, did you know we had a new head of the FMCSA? If you remember right, in the past, we talked about Mira Joshi and how she was very popular among trucking companies and, government officials. Everybody was very happy with her. Seemed like she was going to be a good FMCSA head. But just before she was, approved for the job, she got the offer to go back and be one of the 5 deputy mayors for New York City, which is where she was from, and she took that job. So we are still without an administrator there, but of course we have an acting administrator, somebody that they put in place for that. And the person that U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg named this job is Robin Hutchison. Her official title is the Deputy Administrator of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Apparently, she served under the Biden administration as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Safety Policy at the DOT since January of 21. Now, I have to say she's got a decent resume. She worked as Director of Public Works in Minneapolis, all kinds of safety stuff, there. And she worked for Transportation Director in Salt Lake City. Decent resume going on here. Of course, again, this is not necessarily the person that will be named, but this is the acting administrator. But I have to say, Miss Hutchison seems like a very nice person. I like her sense of humor. I saw an interview with her with Freightwaves, on, video chat. And by the way, Freightwaves, get your people to frame their video shots a little bit better. I mean, there was 10 feet of headroom above her head, and her face was all up in the lower third, that said her name and everything down below. Anyway, work on that a little bit. But anyway, appreciate the video anyway. Hey, but here's the thing. Nice or not, she seemed very clueless about the trucking industry. She was talking about, how much reading she's been doing, catching up on everything that's going on and everything. And she just seemed like trucking was a whole new world to her. And I'm thinking, and this is the person we choose to run the FMCSA. I just don't get it. It's like choosing Pete Buttigieg for the U.S. Transportation Secretary because he did a decent job with the buses and, getting, more bicycle lanes in South Bend, Indiana. Just none of this makes any sense to me. I guess maybe nobody wants the job. I don't know. Anyway, I wish Miss Hutchinson all the best. I keep saying Hutchinson. It's Hutchison. Anyway, I wish her all the best. I hope she gets acclimated to the job, and I hope she does an awesome job. But from the initial interview that I saw, not much hope. We'll see as time goes on. I hate to just, piss on somebody's parade right in the beginning. She just got named to this job. And again, I hope she does a great job. Best of luck to you, Miss Hutchison, and best of luck to Miss Joshi as she goes back to New York City. Yeesh. Maybe one of these days we'll actually have a real head of the FMCSA. Hopefully they'll have some trucking experience. Wow. All right. Now, just as I take a little jab at U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, I go to this freightwaves.com article, and there's a little video on here off of Twitter that is awesome. I mean, awesome. It's really great, really short, like 24 seconds, but he basically just says truckers are essential workers and they need to be paid as such. And that he talks about how truckers are way too often not paid for all of their time, and that we all know is a major problem in this industry, right? Well, he says he's going to prioritize trucker pay. He knows there is a shortage, again, air quote there, but he says there's 300,000 people leaving this field every year, according to his department there. And he says part of the problem, of course, is driver pay and driver retention and driver detention. So he has 2 studies going here to analyze truck driver pay and unpaid detention time. Some of those programs were part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that was signed into law back in November. And many of that stuff was highlighted in the, what do they call it? The Trucking Action Plan that Biden talked about, I don't know, into last year or something like that. Maybe it was last month. I don't remember. Anyway, Trucking Action Plan, kind of address the truck driver shortage. Do I have to keep saying air quotes? Okay. Anyway, he goes on and says, of course, it's important that we pay these drivers what they're worth, and that, we need to not only recruit them, but to, keep them on the job. And, that way they're going to gain experience. The whole system is going to be more safe if you got more experienced drivers, not a bunch of newbies all the time. But the study's also going to review the amount of time a truck driver spends away from home, driving, and detained to determine their true working hours, and then determine true hourly wages. Now, of course, a lot of truck drivers get paid by the mile, and they don't get paid anything while they're sitting, but maybe this will determine what their time is worth while they're sitting in detention, at a customer. This could all be addressed, if these trucking companies would just start charging these shippers, because like Mr. Buttigieg said here, just people don't value a trucker's time. They just don't think it's worth anything. But if you start putting a dollar value on that, they're going to have to start taking it seriously. I mean, if they say, Walmart knows when you go in there that if they detain you for any length of time, you're on the clock as soon as you start getting there. As soon as you get there, you're on the clock. And now they're motivated to get you out. Where if you're just sitting for 4 or 5 hours and they're not paying anything, they don't care. What's it to them? And especially with these new rules, how, if you get a 4-hour off-duty break, that just extends your day out 4 hours. Hey, you can still get your miles out of the day, right? What are you worried about if we delay you by 4 hours? Well, who really wants to work an 18-hour day? Nobody that I know of. I mean, we'll do it often because, we'll make more money that way. But wow. Anyway, they're going to be looking at that. I hope they do something with this because, studies are studies, but acting on it is a totally different thing. Other initiatives that are going on with this is, they're having a women of trucking advisory board that's, designed to figure out how we can get more women in the industry. Right now, I think they're only about 10% of the workforce when it comes to truckers, and, lots of good female drivers out there. There's some studies that actually show that they're safer than drivers because they take safer than male drivers because they take less risks, which I totally believe. They're far more likely to get out and look than a trucker, and then a male trucker that's like, I got it, and then they hit something. A female does not want to be in that position. So, anyway, there's also going to be a task force, focusing on truck leasing and how, there's some shady practices going on with that. So anyway, if you're interested in everything that is going on with this, what is it? Truck, what did I call it earlier? Just a second ago, trucking action plan. You can check out the link here, freightwaves.com. Anyway, I'm just glad to see something has become of this. I hope it doesn't take government intervention to, tell these shippers and receivers that they have to start paying for time. But we will see. If that's what it comes to, that's what it comes to, because our time is valuable also. Moving on. Driver retention. Always talking about driver retention nowadays, right? Well, so is freightwaves.com. And they say that according to a Stay Metrics and 10th Street, that's a company. I don't know what 10th Street does. I think they're the ones who do like all the online applications, driver applications and stuff like that. When you fill one of those out online, I think they do that. But anyway, they have been tracking how long drivers stick around on their jobs, and they put out a big colorful table, like a big graph type thing that explains it all. Boy, it is very complicated. There are lots of numbers in this article, but let me just give you the gist of it. Things might be getting better for retention. Carriers might be doing a better job at retaining their drivers. Some of the information they've gathered seems like, that's what's happening, that drivers are sticking around longer than they used to. We'll see if this trend continues. Hopefully it will. I mean, I think it's a good thing when drivers don't, I don't like for a driver just to stick around for the sake of sticking around because they're comfortable there. I think they should still keep their eyes open. I've had lots of articles and podcasts about that, not getting too complacent with your job and, keeping your eyes open for other opportunities, things like that. But there is something to be said for sticking with the job too. You can get better at the job, get more familiar with the company, be able to run more efficiently, all that good kind of stuff. Plus, who wants to switch jobs? It sucks, right? Even if it's for a better job, the process of switching just sucks. Nobody likes it. But anyway, hopefully this just means that, things are changing for the better with these carriers realizing that they have to not only recruit, but retain these drivers, and they're doing that by better pay, more home time, better facilities, things like that, just better working conditions in general. So anyway, hope this is a turn for the better. If you're interested and you like all these kind of numbers and graphs and all kinds of detailed information, be sure to check out this link at freightwaves.com. Speaking of driver retention, let's just stick with freightwaves.com here. If you want to retain drivers and they're leaving, wouldn't it be nice to know why? Maybe they had some complaints or something like that. Well, of course, carriers want to hear that, and they'll often give you some kind of an exit interview and say, what could we have done better? What could we do to keep you here before you quit? That kind of thing. But I didn't even know this other thing existed. Apparently, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, the FMCSA, said that there is something called the National Consumer Complaint Database, the NCCDB. I didn't even know this exists, but apparently this is a place where you are able to log complaints against like shippers, receivers, bad brokers, anybody that you're interacting with as a trucker. The problem with this is they said this database was useless. It's like people were sending in, complaints and things like that, and just nothing was being done about it, and there's nothing more disheartening than reporting a problem and just being ignored. I hate that so much. And anyway, the FMCSA says they're working on this. They know it's a problem and they want to get this better so that, when you actually file a complaint on something, somebody will actually look into it. and address the problem. Wouldn't that be awesome? It's sad that the government has to actually do this. You'd think be able to, just complain about it to your carrier or whatever, and they would address the problem. But, anyway, it's not just for, shippers, receivers. It's, complaints of harassment at these places, coercion by carriers themselves and shippers, receivers, stuff like that. Anything you got to complain about, except for maybe the fact that, your dog pooped on the floor in your truck or something like that. I'm pretty sure they don't care about that. But anyway, really short article here. Like I said, freightwaves.com if you're interested in that. Hey, this next FreightWaves article talks about the FMCSA and the NHTSA, that's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or something to that effect. They're going to set dates for major rule making, and they're planning on, most of these rules are going to be scheduled for like late 2022, so you probably won't go into effect for, until 2023, but this will be taking place this year. We got a lot of stuff, a lot of agenda going on here with, proposals on, how autonomous driving systems are going to work. They're going to be talking about brokers and, leasing and all that stuff. And, of course, the greenhouse gas standards, for the EPA and all that stuff. Anyway, there's a lot going on this year. Some of the things they mentioned in here was that they're looking at, for instance, this heavy vehicle speed limiters. They've talked about this for quite a while. They're going to be addressing that and deciding whether there's going to be speed limiting devices on all heavy vehicles. I don't think anybody wants that except for the government, maybe. But anyway, they'll be deciding on that this year. They're going to look at the Mexico domiciled motor carriers and see if they're going to let them operate beyond the border towns. Certain motor carriers are only allowed to come just across the border and then go back into Mexico, and they're going to see about maybe expanding that. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I guess we'll see. Here's an interesting one I hadn't heard before. Application for employment. Apparently they're saying the FMCSA is considering changes where a truck driver wouldn't even have to fill out an application to get employment, which just seems weird. They say it's reducing this need could, it's less of a burden on everybody for the driver and the motor carrier. And I get that, but wouldn't the company kind of want to know something about you? Maybe your past work history. Now, what would be really nice is if they had some way to, fill out one application and just keep it on file somewhere where you could just send it to any of these carriers without having to fill it out again and again. Because you all know what these online applications are horrible. They take forever, and they want to know 10 years of your past history. And, if you're one of these job hoppers, you might have 10 different jobs or more, and that takes a lot to fill all that out. And you have to do that every time you want a different job. So I could see that if they want to streamline that a little bit, but I don't really understand why you would want to get completely away from it whatsoever. It's like, what do you do? Just call up a company and say, hey, I'd like to work for you. Okay. What's your name? How long you driven? You can't prove that. I mean, I don't understand this one. Anyway, the next one would be the hours of service for the ag commodities. I know some of Chad Assassin over there in our Slack group, and my friend John Halsing, I used to work with. They are on ag exemptions, and they can run like 1 million miles a day or something like that. It's crazy. I don't even want to try to attempt to explain it to you how it works. I understand what they're saying. I just don't understand how it's legal to do what they're doing. So anyway, this rule, they're going to look at this rule and define the terms of what really qualifies as an agriculture commodity, a livestock, or a non-processed food. So, like I say, it's kind of vague what falls into that category, I guess, at times, and they don't want that to be abused. So they're going to, redefine those terms and maybe, not give them quite so much leeway. And the last one is I don't understand this one at all. It says the extension of the face mask rule. They're basically just saying that every driver and carrier has to comply with emergency orders, directives, or standards to protect public health. When the CDC orders something, or the Transportation Security Administration, or OSHA, when they say to do something, we have to do it. Which, of course, it says when it is applicable. And this, that kind of goes in the face of what they were trying to do recently, how they were saying that, OSHA is going to administrate this vaccine mandate and everything. And of course, the Supreme Court ruled that was kind of out of their jurisdiction, and it kind of got all poo-pooed away. Thank God. But boy, that would have caused a lot of disruption. But anyway, I don't really understand what that's about, but they're going to do some kind of ruling on it at the end of this year. Now, also in this article is that video I was talking about with Miss Robin Hutchison, the new acting deputy administrator. And this is the one I was talking about, where she kind of sounds like she's really new to the industry. So go over here, watch this video. It's like 15 minutes long, but you probably can get a gist of it within the first 5 or 7 minutes, first half of it, But maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Have a listen to this and see if you think that she sounds kind of as clueless as I think she is. I'm sorry if I'm calling somebody clueless, and I don't know that she is clueless. I mean, she was a big safety person, and I get that, but she just doesn't sound like she knows what's going on with the trucking industry. Just the verbiage she uses and everything. Anyway, go over here. I'm going to say it. Link in the show notes. Click on this. This is the one called FMCSA NHTSA set dates for major rulemaking. Look for that link in the show notes. Click on it. Watch this video and tell me if I'm nuts or if I'm on target here. Okay? Thanks. Moving on. I promise I'll try not to, insult Miss Hutchison for the rest of the show. Okay, hang on now, because I'm going to do something again, and that's give Pete Buttigieg a pat on the back. Yeah, he did another good thing here, I think. This is just in my opinion. You write in and let me know what your thoughts are on this. truckerdump@gmail.com. Anyway, this article on freightwaves.com is entitled Buttigieg DOT Rejects Hours of Service Court Challenge Claims. Okay. We've talked about this before, where there are a couple of groups that were coming out and saying that the recent changes in the hours of service, mainly the short haul exemption, the 30-minute break, rest break changes, and the 14-hour pause. Couple of groups. One is the Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety. The other big one was the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, which I am a part of, to full disclosure there. But they were both opposed to this, saying that it made for unsafe working conditions. Of course, that's probably what the Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety think, but I know what's really going on with the Teamsters, because I am one. And what they're thinking is, the 30-minute rest break rule, and the short haul exception actually enables, local drivers to work 14 hours instead of 12. And the 14-hour pause, actually extends your workday. Well, the Teamsters are thinking, we don't want our drivers working that long. If our drivers can't work 14 hours, our local drivers can't work 14 hours, that means we're going to have to hire more employees, and that means more union members. That's where they're going with that. Now, I hope I don't get kneecapped for saying that, but a lot of times you have to look at what the motivations behind these groups are, because I am a Teamster and I love the changes to the 30-minute rest break rule. I love it how you can just, used to in the past, I'd go in to do a drop and a hook somewhere and I couldn't count that as a break, even though the whole point of the break is to get you away from driving for 30 minutes. Not, why should I have to just sit there and stare out the window for 30 minutes if I'm not tired? Like I said in the past, I always called it the stupid 30-minute rule because it's like I was always having to take that break in it when I didn't want it. And I was usually more tired when I got done with the break than I was when I started it, which kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? Still to that day, I'm the same way. If I have to actually, if I got a long day of driving, like I got a 600-mile run, I know I'm not going to be doing any dropping hooks in the middle or anything like that. I know I'm going to have to take a 30-minute rest break somewhere along the way. When I do, I just sit there and I get more tired, which sucks because I don't want to take a nap. I don't need a nap. I just want to keep moving and finish earlier, but I can't do that. Anyway. All that to say, they shot this down, Buttigieg just says, the research was solid on this. We're not making things less safe. So, sorry, your petition is denied, which, yay. Now I get to keep using those new rules. That's awesome. So thank you, Mr. Buttigieg. Appreciate it. Let's go to Landline for this next one. That's landline.media. This one is called Supply Chain Report Tackles Truck Parking and Overtime Exemption. This was a report released by the U.S. Department of Transportation on February 24th. It includes a list of actions that are needed to expedite, the movement of trucks, of goods in general, and get the supply chain moving again. There are 62 recommendations here. The two big ones that affect truck drivers are, of course, truck parking. They list this as a high priority, which is a good thing. They list the complexity of accomplishing it, and the costs are actually considered medium level. So that's a good thing. Maybe they'll see that, hey, it's really, really important. It's not going to cost that much. So let's go ahead and get on with it. I read another report recently that some organizations, I think the trucking, was it the ATA and OIDA, which often don't agree on anything. They actually came together and was asking, the DOT to dedicate $1 billion of this fund for truck parking. No word on that, whether they're going to actually do that or not yet, but we'll see. The other thing they're going to focus on is the motor carrier exemption, where they don't have to pay their drivers overtime. And this is because of the Fair Labor Standards Act that has been in place for years. Somehow or another, truck drivers got lumped into farmers. And I don't even know why farmers are exempt from having to be paid, from having to pay overtime either, but they are. Now, of course, this isn't going to really hurt over-the-road truck drivers because we're not getting paid by the hour, but, for all of the local drivers, that will definitely affect things. And the idea for that is if you're paying these drivers overtime to be sitting around at these shippers and receivers all day long, and the companies are forced to do that, now maybe the companies will crack down on the shippers and the receivers who are delaying their drivers, making them pay time and a half instead. So anyway, they're trying to get that finally kicked out of the Fair Labor Standards Act. Hopefully they'll get that done. There is a bunch of other things in here that they're doing that don't have a lot of, listed in this article here, that don't have a lot to do with truck driver. They're going to try to streamline some truck driver credentialing and stuff like that. But a lot of this stuff has to do with, using more hybrids and things like that. Anyway. If you're interested in that, check out the link in the show notes here to this. They did say that they are doing more studies and stuff like that, and it's going to be a 90-day figuring out what they're going to do here. So they're saying that the end of the 90 days will be about mid-March, and they're supposed to have a comprehensive action plan. That's their word, on how they're going to address all this stuff. So we will see how that goes. Hopefully by the next podcast, we will be talking about this, and maybe they'll actually have some definitive answers instead of just saying, hey, we're going to do this. Hey, how about telling us what you're going to do instead? Wouldn't that be nice? always get this from government. Sometimes I wonder why I even bother reporting on stuff that's like somebody says they're going to do this, or we're doing a study on something. Maybe I ought to just wait until they actually do something about it. But I don't know. Sometimes it's important because there is like a listener, a listening time where they will take your feedback and stuff like that. And it's important to know that. I do not see anything like that on this particular trucking action plan thing. So anyway, we'll let you know the next podcast, hopefully. Anyway, again, that one is on landline.media, and we don't use them very often, so you might just want to go to the link in the show notes and click right there. This one, again, was called Supply Chain Report Tackles Truck Parking and Overtime Exemption. I always get those two mixed up. Don't know why that is. Because I'm a big dummy. That's why. Speaking of truck parking, there is a really interesting article over here. It's kind of long, but it's very interesting. It's over here on freightwaves.com. Public sector efforts to boost truck parking face path filled with hurdles. Yeah. Okay. What they're talking about here is how, it'd be nice if you could get like third parties to come in there and build, parking lots for truckers and things like that. But there's all kinds of hurdles in here that this article talks about. One being that, there's been a long-standing rule against building commercial developments on interstate highways. It has to be off the highway somewhere. So, that's why, all of these truck stops, they're not, like situated like in the median or, right on the highway where you can just exit right off the highway and get into it. Yeah, they got some plazas and stuff like that on toll roads, but those are privately owned, roads. The toll roads are. So, what they're saying is that presents a problem, because if somebody actually did want to build a nice truck stop right on the highway, they can't do it. Okay. But they're saying maybe in the future, they're discussing different ways maybe they could help with this, like maybe they mentioned like, okay, maybe if Love's would add an extra big parking lot, because they don't actually get paid for the parking. They get paid for if you go inside and shower and eat and all that stuff. So it doesn't often benefit them to have a huge parking lot as much as you might think it would. But their idea is like maybe, the government, some of these government funds for parking could go towards, Love's and Pilot and Petro and TA and all the truck stops to help maintain those parking lots and possibly even to help them build, bigger parking lots, which makes sense because would you rather have just like a parking lot, like a way station that's turned into an unused way station that's turned into a parking lot for truckers where there's hardly any facilities, nothing to eat? Or would you rather have those extra spaces at a nice truck stop where you can go get a shower and get something to eat and get fuel and all that other stuff? So maybe they can figure out a way to make that work. They're talking about not just extra funds for building the parking lot, but, just taking care of it, as long as it's a paved parking lot where truckers can park, they might, pay for somebody to keep that clean, that kind of a thing, just government help to, that way the government is just using all this money just to build stuff themselves, like build truck parking themselves. They're actually getting people who already do this to help in the process. So like I said, it's not that long of an article, but it is pretty interesting with all the hurdles that they have to jump through to get this done, and kind of explains why, it's not quite as simple as, ATA and OI to saying, hey, we want $1 billion for truck parking. Let's just go build a bunch of truck parking. Bit more complicated than that. So anyway, freightwaves.com for that one. Hey, a while ago we talked about streamlining the process for getting your CDL and to get more truck drivers into the industry quicker with less hassle, right? Well, freightwaves.com has an article over here. FMCSA lifts restrictions on CDL knowledge test proctors. Wow. You're going to love this one. There is a new act, The government will go to no lengths to try to make an acronym out of something, just unbelievable. This one is called the License Act. And of course, license has meaning. It stands for Licensing Individual Commercial Exam Takers Now Safely and Efficiently. Boy, what a stretch. Boy, who came up? Do we have someone just at the government just sitting around? That's their only job, to come up with acronyms for stuff like this. I hope they get paid crappy. Anyway, basically what this rule is, or this new act is saying, this is just it's been proposed. It's not going on yet, but it's basically saying they want to allow third-party CDL skills test examiners previously authorized by the state to administer the CDL knowledge test as well. In the past, they've only been able, if you're a third party, and not a state examiner, you could only do the skills test, but you couldn't do the written test. Now they're saying they're going to be able to do that also, which kind of makes sense with these new rules that they've come up with for the new trainees and stuff like that. Especially the 18-year-olds, they're going to have them doing all kinds of, having more standards and stuff like that. They're going to have knowledge-based theory tests and things like that, like 5 different subject, just beyond like the written and the driving test. It's going to be deeper than that. We discussed that a little bit in the last podcast. If you're interested in that, that was episode 159 and all the different things that went into that. That's not just for the 18s, but that's just standards have changed for any new person coming into the industry. So, and that has already been decided also, that they are going to allow third parties to teach that part of the class. So, a driving school might be able to, hire out that part of the process, basically. Hey, we're going to teach the person to drive, but we're going to send you over to this place to learn all of this theory stuff and get tested on it, ideally. So that probably will streamline things. We will see how this works. I'm always a little nervous when, like the examiner for your driving test is also the guy who trained you, at your driving school, who instructed you. That's always been a little sketchy to me, because it's like, of course he's going to pass you, because he's the one. If he doesn't pass you, it's like, it reflects on him as a poor instructor, right? So why wouldn't he pass you? Seems like a just fraud waiting to happen. But I've said that before. But anyway, we'll see where this goes. This is all just, once again, this is all just things that could happen in the future. This License Act also says it would make another waiver that's been issued 7 times during the pandemic. And that is that it would allow anybody to administer a driving skills test to anyone who has an out-of-state CDL. So if, if you were going through, say you had your CLP, your commercial learner's permit, and you were with the trainer, and then you're from Missouri, and then you find yourself, you got all your training requirements in, and your trainer says you're ready to go, and you're in Oregon. Well, you could go take your test in Oregon, apparently, according to this. And would make this a waiver. It's not in effect yet, but that's the way that would work, then they would have their license and they could take it from there. So, maybe they have a terminal out there in Oregon, and you don't have to make it all the way back to Missouri with your trainer. Now your trainer could just drop you off. You grab your truck, you're on your way, and now you're a solo driver yourself. Another waiver this License Act addresses is that somebody with a CDL holder, maybe they've passed their CDL driving test, but they haven't got their license yet because they haven't got back to their home state. As is right now, they're still just a CDL holder, or a CLP holder. Even though they have a CDL, they have to have somebody in the front seat of the cab with them at all times. But, they're saying this new rule would, because they've passed the driving skill test, they just haven't done the paperwork yet, that they will be allowed to drive with the trainer in the sleeper berth. instead of being up there in the seat with them, which makes sense. You know, if you pass the driving skills test and you've got the paper showing that you've passed that, okay, you've got a paper. It's not the official license yet, but you're going to get it eventually. So I don't have a problem with that one either. So anyway, we'll just keep an eye on this License Act and make fun of the name a lot more times probably the rest of this year while they're figuring out what they're going to do with it. All right, moving on. Hey, here's a quick one on freightwaves.com. Man, had a lot from Freightwaves this time. What happened? Overdriveonline.com. This one's called Virginia likely to see push for right lane truck restriction during snow. Yeah, this was back in January when they had that big pile up. I like how the article puts it. It, quote, a snowbound traffic jam from hell on Virginia's Interstate 95. Yeah, there was a huge backup over there. Well, a Democratic state senator from Northern Virginia, he's also the chairman of the Senate's Transportation Committee, so he's got some clout here. May get that passed, who knows. He says this new legislation would restrict trucks to the right lanes on much of the Commonwealth's interstate highways when frozen precipitation is falling. So anytime it's sleeting or snow or anything like that, a trucker would be required to be in the right-hand lane. They say could be the case where if there's 3 lanes in your direction that you might be able to use the right 2 lanes. But anyway, you're not supposed to be out in that left-hand lane. That's going to be interesting to see what they do here because I don't know about you, but I don't think I'm one of those super truckers, but I also know there are a lot of cars that drive really, really slow in this stuff. And if they're in the right-hand lane, I feel I can get around them safely and just move on with my day. But, you know, if this rule goes into effect, then you will be stuck over there. But, you know, this doesn't really address part of the problem, too, is that, you know, they're talking about during an active snowfall or sleet. Well, what about those times when the road has been cleared by the plows in the right-hand lane, but not the left-hand lane? But it's not snowing. It's not actively snowing or sleeting, but a truck can get over there in that left-hand lane that's snow-packed, right? I guess they'll probably address that too. Anyway, whatever. We'll see when it happens. Or if it happens. Hey, speaking of that big wreck in Virginia, I'm sure there was all kinds of insurance claims on that, right? What a mess that must have been. I saw some photos and it didn't look like fun. I'm glad I was nowhere near there. But anyway, got a couple of articles related to this and crashing and insurance and stuff like that. The first one here is on overdriveonline.com. How to confront the post-crash litigation threat. Start at the scene of the accident. This is a very good article. I was not expecting a lot out of it, honestly, but it turned out to be pretty darn good and informative. For instance, let me just cover a few of the highlights here. They talked to Ted Perryman. He's a St. Louis-based defense attorney. He deals with a lot of trucking companies and crash cases. He says, quote, one of the things you see about 50% of the time is immediately after an on-highway incident is the first thing the truck driver does is call his or her company. The driver does that before dialing 911, before even checking on the other folks involved in the crash. Now, he says this is really bad. You don't want to do this because when you get to court, what are they going to tell the jury? That you were sitting in your truck, you pulled over, but you sat in your truck and you called your company. You didn't go check on the people to see if they were okay. You didn't, check on everybody and make sure people were off the road and, and all of that stuff. Your biggest concern was calling your company, which to me is weird that you're calling your company before 911. But what I would do, honestly, is call 911 as I'm running back there. But, anyway, don't just, call them. They also say to, make sure you have a camera. Probably your smartphone is usually a good camera. Take photos of the final resting place of all the vehicles, any physical damage to the roadway and all the damage on the vehicles. guardrail damage, tire tracks from braking or anything like that, anything that's helpful, including witnesses. Says to make sure you can get, if there's witnesses around, get their names. Of course, if you were the one at fault, I'm not sure that I would do that. I'm not sure I'd want to be getting a bunch of witnesses. I'd leave that up to them if I knew it was my fault, right? Of course, the best place you can go to know exactly what to do in these situations is to your employer. If you're a company driver or a lease operator, call your company. They're probably going to have some other 24 hours a day in risk management to deal with this kind of stuff. They're going to walk you through it. You're going to be all jacked up and your adrenaline's going to be going, and you don't want to walk up there and say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pull out. I didn't mean to, hit you. You don't want to do that. You never want to admit fault, right? And, you don't want to freak out. That's their job, to keep you calm and to tell you what to do and how they handle the situation, right? And of course, they're also saying that dash cams, especially if you are not at fault and it, that can save big time. You get a video that shows what the other person did and it caused the accident. Boy, that can go a long way in a court of law. Of course, dash cam, as I've pointed out before, can also show that you were the one being an idiot, So he also cautions against cell phone use. Of course, even talking on the phone does not look good for he says he's surprised that a lot of cases he deals with, somebody's been talking on the phone for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. I can relate to that. So, if he says, even though most people can talk on the phone and drive down the road safely, if you present that in a case, in a court to a jury, and they're sympathetic to the person sitting there with a neck brace on or whatever, they're going to be like, why was that guy on his phone so long? He should be paying attention to driving instead of talking on the phone. So, of course, he says the best option is to just stay off your phone, but we all know that's not going to happen. So just limit it to the best of your ability. Again, it's not just the dash cams either. He recommends, like, if there's a gas station close by, you might hit them up and see if they've got anything going on with that. If they've got cameras that might have picked something up. He says you can use police body cameras when they show up to document the evidence on scene. He even lists that you could go to social media, which I had not thought about, but the day after or something like that, you might try to figure out if anybody was in the area and had taken any footage. Maybe they got something you didn't. Maybe they talked to somebody involved in the accident and they're admitting fault or something like that, but they didn't tell you that. It would be nice to have that on camera, wouldn't it? And be able to point to that in a court of law. So anyway, interesting article here. Be a good thing to read in case you ever find yourself in an accident, which more than likely you will if you're driving 120, 150,000 miles a year. So do yourself a favor, head on over to not about truckdriving.com. That's my website, overdriveonline.com, or click a link in the show notes and go check this one out right away. Hey, here's another one that you need to go and read. It's a pretty quick read and not that big of a deal. It is on overdriveonline.com. How a plaintiff's attorney shop works and how truckers can play defense to work it. This is talking about, like those big headhunters, that are out there, the truck injury lawyers who are just looking, for any truck accident, all the big, the Hammer and all those guys, it is interviewing a person who used to work for one of these law firms and how all of the inner workings works on this. And it's not quite exactly the way I thought it worked. So, again, I'm not going to go into great detail. If you're not interested in this kind of stuff at all, don't bother. But I just found it a very interesting article to know what's going on behind the scenes there, and how you can kind of be prepared for it if you're ever in one of these positions, where you got one of these lawyers coming after you. So anyway, check that one out if you're interested. If not, well, I don't know. Go outside and fly a kite or something. What the heck? If you want to do that, 20-degree weather, have at it. Okay. Let's go on. Hey, I don't really have a lot to say about this next article either over here on Freight Waves. It's called Who Wants to Own a Trucking Company? Retailers are starting to line up. I just found this kind of interesting, just made me think a little bit because they're talking about how private fleets are coming back into fashion where, Walmart, they are a retailer, but they have their own truck driving fleet. For instance, Ashley Furniture, they've got their own fleet. Who else? Sherwin-Williams would be one, places like that. And those jobs have always been typically really good jobs. They typically pay more. This says, the average pay for a private fleet driver usually surpasses $100,000 per year, or did I say 100? I meant 80,000, 80,000 per year. But that's still, really good in the trucking industry. And, as we all know, pay is going up. So I, again, don't really have a lot to say about this. I just found it very interesting that they're saying that more and more companies are starting to get interested in owning their own fleet of trucks again. And maybe that will lend itself to better paying jobs for truck drivers on down the road. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Told you it'd be short. All right, got a couple more just stuff you should know as a trucker. Or maybe not. I don't know. I don't care about some of this stuff. Some of it I do. You be the judge. But one of the things I am really into is knowing where all the truck stops are. And guess who's at it? Yep. Loves. Again, 2 new ones. One in North Canton, Ohio, and one in Santa Teresa, New Mexico. That's about 150 more truck parking spaces, and all without government funding. What do you know? The new Ohio store offers 70 spaces. Hardee's, I like Hardee's quite a bit. They're going to be opening March 7th. So here just about a week or so from when I'm recording this. 9 diesel bays, 8 showers, and a Speedco. That's cool. I like having shops around. Of course, if they're not open, what's the point? The New Mexico location has 86 spots, Chester's Chicken, Godfather's Pizza and Subway, 8 diesel bays, 6 showers, and more, it says. I wonder what more means. I don't know. Love's has been doing a lot of those dog parks lately. I think those are pretty popular, although, the time I drive is overnight, so I don't see them being used a lot, but I imagine they are a lot during the day. All those dogs go in there and sniff each other's butts. It's just a party in there, I'm telling you. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the news for now. Yes, there is a crap load more I already have in my notes for the next episode. We'll get to them when we get to them. Again, some of this stuff I realize is old news, but I still think it has relevance. And a lot of this is stuff that still, you need to know about basically. So that's why, even though some of that stuff is really old, I just went ahead and, put it out here because, hey, I put in the work, so you get it whether you like it or not. That's the way I roll. So that will do it for the news for now. I haven't said this in a while, but our longest running advertiser is also the most fun to say. Volvo, Volvo, Volvo. Yep, volvotrucks.us. Check them out. What you're going to find when you click on the link in the show notes is a video describing how Volvo's new D13 turbo compound engine works. It's a pretty nifty video. It'll show how Volvo's new wave-shaped piston design burns fuel more efficiently than their old motors, and what energy that does escape gets recaptured and reused by the turbo compound unit. And don't forget that the Volvo D13 turbo compound engine is extremely smart too. I mean, we're talking front of the class, nerdy kid with the glasses smart. Yeah, it knows when you're hauling a heavy load and it gives it all she's got, gives it all the torque it can. But when you're light or bobtailing, it just sips on the fuel. Like I said, that's nerd smart. It's 6% more fuel efficient than their D13 and up to 11% over their 2015 engines. And as we talked about earlier, those fuel prices are expected to rise. So go on over to volvotrucks.us, click a link in the show notes, have a look at the video, and check out all the different ways you can customize a Volvo to get the exact application you're looking for. So again, head on over to volvotrucks.us or click a link in the show notes to go straight to that video. And thanks to Volvo Trucks for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump.
Give us a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food, eat it.
Well, what do you know? We got a Trucker Grub segment 2 episodes in a row. What? Yeah, this one's from Scott Gunter, who goes by the name Killjoy in the Trucker Dump Slack group and probably lots of other places. So take it away, Scott.
Hello, Todd, and everyone else as well. I thought I would do a Trucker Grub segment. There's this restaurant right down the street from me, and I see trucks parked over there pretty often. You kind of have to park across, like next to the curb or whatever, but it's doable, and it's worth it. It's a restaurant called Breakfast Time. It's off of I-85 in North Carolina, exit 60, and it is awesome. You can have omelets, burgers. I think they got chicken fried steak. Their prices are all, pretty normal for a diner. You're talking like $8 to $12. Some things a little more, but their prices are worth it and their food is worth it. They're a place we go to at least once a payday if we can. Definitely worth it. And yeah, that's really all I got to say on it. It's definitely worth checking out if you're ever in the area. Thank you.
Well, Killjoy, that's all you really have to say, isn't it? Yeah, baby. This looks good. I looked this up. By the way, he was talking about parking in front of the curb. It's looks a little tight in there, but he says trucks are parked along in front of the curb there all day long. So if you have a podcast app, you'll notice that there's a photo of a map there, and it'll show you how to get in there. And the orange is the route to get in there, and the green is where you park. Okay? Looks pretty simple. But anywho, yes, I found this place on the map. It is, like he said, it is on I-85, exit 60 in Concord, North Carolina. And it is called Breakfast Time. And it might be called Breakfast Time anytime. But either way, I imagine all locals just call it Breakfast Time. Open 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. One of those places that doesn't have dinner and stuff like that. But like he said, they got burgers. They call them smash burgers. They got a bunch of different kind of sandwiches. They got subs. They got soup. They've got salads. They got lunch platters like, Southern fried chicken breast, pork tenderloin. Ooh, Jack Daniel's bourbon glazed pork tenderloin. Heck yeah. They've got sides like steamed cabbage, fried squash, fried okra, fried zucchini. This is the South. Fried everything, right? Collard greens, sweet potato casserole, plus all the normal stuff like mashed potatoes, coleslaw, potato salad, all that good stuff. Man, looks good. And boy, their breakfast, they got a lot of breakfast stuff on here. Of course, they do have the chicken fried steak, like he said, which I love it. They call it country fried steak, I believe, or southern fried steak, but it's on there. And prices are great. Like the breakfast you can get a breakfast special for like as low as $5.99. That's pretty great. They got steak and eggs, $14.99. Man, all these different kind of omelets, Mexican chorizo, Western, south of the border. Holy crap, California, breakfast sandwiches, croissant sandwiches, English muffins and biscuits. Good Lord. Oh my. Oh my. Look at those pancakes. With chocolate chips, with pecans, with blueberries inside, with strawberries inside, with bananas inside. They even have bananas, Foster, pancakes, French toast, or croissants. Oh my. waffles. Topped with bananas, sautés with butter, brown sugar, and flambé with rum. Sprinkled with powdered sugar and cinnamon roll. Holy mackerel. Oh my. Yeah. Well, here's the beauty of this. I get through here every once in a great while down I-85 right there. And if I'm there at breakfast time, well, I know I'm going to breakfast time. And Scott, if I am in the area, I will give you a call in advance and let you know, and maybe you can meet me down there and I'll buy you breakfast. How's that sound? Okay. Good Lord. Now I'm hungry. The evil overlord says she's making spaghetti tonight. That's really good, but now I'm kind of in the mood for bananas Foster pancakes. Okay, well, beggars can't be choosers. I'll eat what I get. Anyway, thank you, Scott, for this. There will be a link in the show notes to the breakfast time here, so you can check out their menu and everything, and where they're at, all the different locations. Looks like they have other locations, too. They got this one in Concord here. They got a couple in Concord, Clemens, Salisbury, Winston-Salem, a couple in Winston-Salem. So, wow, go check out that link in the show notes to that. Holy mackerel. Now I'm hangry. Thanks again, Killjoy. If you have a favorite place that you like to eat and you can access from a truck or a short walk from truck parking, please send it in. truckerdump@gmail.com. Just send me a little audio comments. These are audio comments only. Tell me a little bit about the menu, where you can park, the atmosphere, prices, what's your best and favorite meal, all that kind of good stuff. Again, truckerdump@gmail.com. Cool.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Hey, you know what's better than getting a complimentary email? Pretty much nothing. We're going to hear from Mark Bezant. Bezant? Sorry, Mark, I got your name wrong. I'm sure of that. He writes, "Hey, Todd, I hope this email finds you well." It does. "I have very recently decided I want to change careers. I've been in the same job for 32 years and I need to find something different, something challenging. A friend of mine told me he was going for his Class A CDL. After a lengthy conversation about trucking school, I knew that I too wanted to try it out. Now, I've learned not to jump into things without first educating myself. Took 55 years to learn that, but better late than never." Yep, very true. "During my research, I discovered your podcast and became an instant fan. I've learned more about the trucking industry from your podcast than from any other source. I'm writing to be invited to your Trucker Dump Slack group so I can continue my education. My plan is to enroll in trucking school next spring or summer. Until then, I'll continue to listen to the podcast and read your book, Trucking Life, which I recently purchased. Thanks, Todd, and have a great weekend." Well, thank you, Mark. You know, I think that's probably the best compliment I've ever gotten, that, you've learned more from the podcast from any other source. Dude, you got like 2 sources? Seriously, though, I do appreciate it. I hope you find the book just as helpful as you have the podcast. Keep in mind that book, Trucking Life, has a link to the audio in there. So if you want to listen to 9.25 hours of my voice like a crazy person, you can listen if you so choose. Mark is also a member of the Slack group now, although I don't think he's participated very much. What's the hold up there, Mark? Well, anyway. By the way, there's something weird going on with the Slack group. By the way, I've been realizing that people that I'm adding to the Trucker Dump Slack group, it's supposed to be entering you into all the different channels, basically all the different topic areas, and it's not doing that for some weird reason. So if you get an invitation to the Trucker Dump Slack group and you only find yourself in like hours of service or something that's kind of boring, realize that there's other channels and you can add yourself to those. I got to figure out what's going on there. It's like I said, it's supposed to add you to all the groups by default, and then you can opt out if you're not interested in hobbies or, hours of service or technology or something like that. You can opt out. But anyway, for those of you who do not know, if you're unaware, Trucker Dump Slack group is an awesome group we have that is a bunch of experienced drivers. We got a bunch of rookies over there too, and that's kind of the point. Rookies learning from experienced drivers, everybody having a good time, talking, cutting up. It's a clean place to be. It's a friendly place to be. You're not going to find all these internet trolls over here. If you ask a question, it will be answered with minimum snark, but some snark's fun, but the way Facebook is. You ask a question and people ridicule you for 30 minutes and then you get one answer, so yeah, hate that. You're not going to get that from the Trucker Dump Slack group, and you're not going to get that from the Trucker Dump Facebook group either. You can check out both of those. There's links to both of those in the show notes in your podcast app. Right at the bottom, you'll see it. So join one of those groups and get away from all the trolls. Okay? Anyway, thank you, Mark, for writing in. I appreciate it. Next up, we're going to hear from Driver Dave. He says, hello, Todd, with 2 Ds, 2 Cs, and 2 Ns. So I stopped in Illinois one night a week ago and slept. Woke up in the morning, did the walk around, and prepared to leave. Pushed in the yellow button, then the red button. Felt no resistance from the red button. Strange. Tried to move. Nope. With the red button in, I got out and ripped the emergency line off. Nothing happened. I'm thinking tractor protection valve, right? Wrong. Check the pics. This is what happens when somehow the exhaust pipe from the S-bar touches the plastic air lines. LOL. Have a great day. God bless Driver Dave. Oh boy. Yeah, I looked at these pictures. Boy, that's a bad setup. Why would they put an air line right up against that S-bar hose? For those of you who don't know, the S-bar, it's spelled ESPAR, and it is basically a bunk heater. It's a giant heater underneath your bunk, and it really does a good job of heating up the truck. Doesn't air condition at all, just heat. And it, sucks its fuel from the diesel tanks, and it works really great in the winter. But wow. I mean, this was right up against it. It just melted it. Wow. It melted it and pinched it off, basically. So that's just bad luck and really, really, really poor planning. Whoever laid this thing out, that's messed up. Not cool. I'll put the photo in the chapter art if you have a podcast app that supports it, so you can see what we're looking at here. Next up, we are going to hear from Andrew Justice, Justice, Justiss. He writes, hi, I'm Andrew. I just got my CDL and I'm starting with Swift soon. Nobody laugh. Nobody laugh. We all start somewhere, right? He says, I've been listening to the podcast and would love to be a part of the group and learn more from the old timers. Dude, did you just call me old? Well, truth hurts, I guess. Anyway, Andrew, I assume you meant the Trucker Dump Slack group, because the Trucker Dump Facebook page is open to the public, and that's just the way it is. The Trucker Dump Slack group, that's just the way that one is too. It needs an invitation. That's just the way it's set up. We're not snobby or anything. You just have to get invited to that. So if that's what you wanted, I sent you an invitation. I wasn't sure which one it was. So just take which one. Heck, join both. Whichever one you don't want to, you don't like. Maybe you like both. Maybe you just only like one. Dump the other one. No pressure. These kind of social things are not for everyone. So come as you are. Do as you please, man. The more, the merrier. For the record, Andrew sent this back in November. So, I hope your career's going well over there at Swift and you haven't quit the industry yet, because, it's not known to be the best place to work. So I hope you stuck it out, because if you will, you can make a good career out of this. But getting through that first 6 months is kind of rough, especially when you're at a different company. Let's put it that way. All right. So anyway, thank you for writing in and for listening, Andrew. Appreciate you. Hey, you know how I've told you a million times that I really suck at email? Well, here's a perfect example. Chris Moyer writes, "Hey Todd, my name is Chris and I'm new to the trucking industry and was looking to become a part of the Slack group. I believe that's what it's called. Anyway, I'd like an invitation. Appreciate it and looking forward to conversation and knowledge from the group." And I wrote him back 3 months later. "Holy crap on a stick, Chris. My sincerest apologies. I somehow flagged your email to read on the podcast while completely forgetting to add you to the Slack group. Good Lord. Anyway, I wasn't trying to be a jerk. I'm just a big dummy. Invitation coming if you're still interested." So you might think, well, Todd, you are really bad at email. Here's the thing. I'm even worse than you think, because I actually did respond to him 4 days after he initially sent this to me. So now Chris is probably sitting over there getting an email going, what is Todd talking about? He's already sent me the invitation and everything. Anyway, on his initial response, he wrote, "Awesome, man. Thank you. I'm also a Christian. Seems I lost my way lately. Anyway, we won't get into that at the moment, but I look forward to being a part of the group. I listened to almost every single episode from the beginning, but I lost my way with that also. Anyway, I'm going to head over to the group and spend my evening checking that out, because I'm sure it's better than what this truck stop in Jersey has to offer right now. Thanks, man." You know, Chris, it is so easy to lose your way when it comes to your Christianity in the cesspool of a world we live in. It's just a mess right now. But hey, that's why it's so great that our God is a forgiving God, right? We'd all be totally screwed if he wasn't. So thank you for that. Thank you, Lord. And with that, as one podcaster I listen to would say, that concludes the Sky Buddy portion of the episode. I'd prefer not to call my God Sky Buddy, but it's kind of funny regardless. Anyway, I just said that because we don't talk about religion a lot on the podcast, but hey, I'm always open to it because I am a Christian. You want to talk about it? Send me an email, truckerdump@gmail.com. No problems with that whatsoever. So anyway, Chris, I'm having trouble here because I'm looking in the Trucker Dump Slack group. I know I sent you the invitation. I only see one in here that I don't recognize, and that is Daytona Chris. Is that you? If it is, you've been awful quiet, man. Okay? Everybody, speak up. Got to be heard, man. All right. So anyway, Chris, thank you for writing in and for listening, and sorry for all the confusion. Let me say it again. I suck at email. Man, oh man, we keep having all these short emails, so we're just popping them out left and right here. Next up, we've got Robert Hopper. He says, "Hey there, I just discovered your podcast and liking it so far. I'm new to trucking and was curious if I could have access to the Slack channel. Thanks." Robert, I did send you an invitation, but I do not see you in this Trucker Dump Slack group unless you've got some weird name that I don't recognize in there. Some people use strange usernames, which is cool, but, I don't know if you're in there or not. I haven't heard from you. So if you're in there, please give me a shout on there. Let me know, hey, I'm such and such. Please. Okay, cool. Next up, Ben Barton writes in, "Hello, Todd. I hope this message finds you well. My name is Ben, and I just passed my Class A exam. Woohoo!" Of course, just was done on November 22nd. So, yeah. Anyway, congratulations. He says, "I've been listening for a few months now and very much appreciate how down to earth you seem to be while providing so much wisdom. I figure it couldn't hurt to know more folks in the industry, so I'd like to request an invitation to the Slack group that you have mentioned on your podcast. Thanks again for all you do. P.S. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful Thanksgiving wherever you may find yourself." And because I'm such a responsive person that's so good at email, he sent me another one that says, Todd, what's up, my man? I hadn't heard back from you. I know you're a busy man, but it looks like your website's down also. I hope all is well and you are all right, my dude. Yeah, Ben. If you remember right from the last episode, Nicholas Murphy, Jack Rickelman, and Keith Butler all wrote in saying the website was down, and I said, I'm pretty sure there was somebody else or a few somebody else's. Well, guess what? One of them was Ben. But hey, you don't realize that when you don't see the freaking email. Anyway, everything is fine, man. I'm so bad at this, and I feel so horrible when I overlook somebody's email. They take the time to write in and, have input for the podcast or ask to be a part of the group, and I just I'm off in la la land somewhere, not even paying attention. And, boy, anyway, I don't try to be a jerk. I just am a jerk, I guess. Well, that's the way it is. Anyway, Ben, he wrote back. I finally did get that email to him, or that invitation to him, and he wrote, thank you, sir. All of those rules. He's talking about the guidelines I have for the group. He says, all those rules sound like some pretty solid guidelines that would create an environment that is conducive to learning as well as prioritizing respect. Merry Christmas, my dude. Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, too. A bit late. Anyway, Ben, I am pretty sure you did join. I'm guessing you are Wookiee Noises, which is a great username. Just love that as a Star Wars nerd myself. I can't make that noise. I wish I could. Anyway, Ben, I think it is extremely imperative that if you can do a Wookiee noise, a really good one, you should record it in audio form and send it to truckerdump@gmail.com. Okay? Get on it. Thanks for writing in, Ben, and thanks for being a new listener. All right, there is still more listener feedback in the queue, so if you have written into the show and haven't heard back yet, well, I'm at least through December now, okay? All right, these last two for today are extremely relevant to the way I want to end this episode. So let's start off with yet another Chris. He writes, I really enjoy your podcast. I'm a driver of 15 years. I pull flatbed for HMD LLC. I appreciate the time you put into these shows. Please drop another episode. I'm on a 5-week trip. Keep looking for a new show, but nothing. Come on, man. Be safe and well, Chris. Chris, I wrote back to Chris and said, I'm trying, man. I'm editing one right now, but it probably won't be out until Sunday or Monday. Guess what? It wasn't out Sunday or Monday. It was like 10 days after I sent him that email. Because, that's how I roll. Anyway, Chris, thanks for listening and writing in. I appreciate it. And last, we're going to hear from Bruce Phelps, who you might remember from the last episode. He turned in the Trucker Grub segment on Patty's Restaurant, which, by the way, looked delicious. Take it away, Bruce.
Hey, Todd.
Hey, Bruce.
Hey, I'm glad I discovered you on the podcast and your YouTube video. My name is Bruce Phelps. I drive for Walmart out of Ottawa, Kansas. Not sure if that's relevant or not, but I discovered you by YouTube when we had one of the Garmin OneDrives myself for a little over a year. Got to look around YouTube. Anybody else had any kind of experience with it? And lo and behold, there your YouTube video was. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thus, by listening to it, I found your podcast.
Cool.
I do quite a few podcasts anyhow. Not too many trucking ones, so I was really excited. I've only listened to your last two podcasts, part 1, part 2 of 6-month truck driver. So, at any rate, I sent you an email previous to this to join your Slacker group, and I'm anxious to kind of get involved and listen and participate with your groups. I think that's all I got to say right now, but keep up the good work. Appreciate it. Over and out.
As Driver Dave would say, Roger Beep. Well, thank you, Bruce, for contributing to the show. Appreciate the audio comments always. Now to the relevancy of those last two. Both Bruce, Chris, and, well, many of you who have written into the show do thank me for all the time that I put into this podcast, and I really appreciate you saying that. However, that does not change the fact that this podcast takes a lot of time to do. Again, I'm not trying to whine. I'm just letting you know what's going on. Something's gotta change. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to be doing some experimenting within the next month or two. So just keep an eye on your feed. Check for the podcast a little bit more often. If you don't have it set to automatically download. Again, I'm just experimenting. I don't know what I'm going to do, but if things don't change, I may have to actually consider giving this up. I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I still enjoy doing the podcast. It's just a lot of work for what it brings in. I'm not begging for money or anything like that. It is what it is. Without a huge audience, you just can't hardly make this work. Podcast people, hear about all these podcast success stories where somebody comes in and they're making, hundreds of thousands of dollars off their episode, but that is so very rare. I've been doing this for 10 years and I can tell you I don't make anywhere close to that. If you figure all the hours I put into this, I'm making probably what, some kid in a sweatshop in Indonesia makes. So again, I'm not complaining, and the sponsors have been more than generous, honestly, for what it is. No complaints there whatsoever. I appreciate everything they've done. Again, this is not a signing off, I'm quitting notice here. It's just saying that I got to make some changes. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I'm trying not to make them less frequent. That's for sure. Because Lord knows getting less frequent would be, wow. Now I do know a podcaster who does it. I think his name is Dan Carlin. I think he's a historian, but he can wait like 6 months between an episode, and his episode will be, 4 or 6 hours long or something, but he's already well known. He's got, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers, and you can make that work, if your name isn't Todd McCann. So anyway, like I said, I appreciate all of you listening and putting up with my wacky schedule and, this wacky, inconsistent podcast is what it is. But anyway, like I said, I'll be making some changes. I don't even know what those changes are yet. So we're just going to have to see what comes of this. Anyway, as always, I appreciate you listening. So let's just book on out of here and finish this. As always, I would like to thank those awesome sponsors who without, I probably would have quit this years ago. So thank you to Porter Freight Funding and Volvo Trucks. Did someone hear a guitar plug in? So hey, after that little announcement there, I don't even know where to go with this. I guess if you want to help keep this podcast going, the best thing you can do is spread the word to everyone you know. Tell your trucker friends and give Trucker Dump a shout out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or wherever else you hang out online. And of course, reviews and ratings on iTunes are one of the best ways to help people searching for trucking podcasts. And hey, even if you don't have iTunes installed, you can still leave a review just by following the link in the show notes. It's right at the bottom of all those links in the show notes. As always, you can reach me at truckerdump@gmail.com and see everything else I do at abouttruckdriving.com. Thanks for listening. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. First, Cummins has acquired the Jacobs Vehicle Systems. First, Cummins announced plans that it has plans to acquire Jacobs. The second one we've got also involves every time I think about electric trucks, I think about automated, vehicles, the automation, fully fully what? Because another waiver this is discussing is this thing about the CLP holder. If they've already passed their CDL test right now, they still have to have an accompanying CDL holder in the front seat of the cab, but they're saying now you should be able to have put them in the back seat, put them in the sleeper. None of this makes any damn sense. Yes.
I was waiting for you to mess up, so.
I messed up. Yeah. That doesn't take long.
I heard it.
Yeah. You just sitting there. He'll screw up in a couple of seconds.
I figured.
Yeah. You suck.
I need the tea.
Huh?
I need the extra tea here.
You're disturbing me.
Oh, you'll get over it.
Maybe.
Big baby.
Big baby you.
What kind of tea would you like, or would you like me to surprise you?
Surprise me.
Okay, Jacob wants a surprise too.
Okay.